everybody. I'm supposed to be Albert Einstein, but the mustache won't stick. Uh-oh, here comes the doctor. Time out. Wow, he does stick though. I don't want to look like Hitler. All right, let's get this started. You all know, well, I did some calculations. I pulled up a little slide rule and measured it out. Bathrooms are back there. You just go straight to the left. And if you haven't got one, everyone should have got one of the Christmas tree forms. This is really popular. It's actually a great price. $35 for a tree that's between 5 and 6 feet. So extra forms in the back, although they're last year's forms, so the date is wrong. So just know that after Thanksgiving, the price goes up. All right? So plenty of forms in the back. You can give them to your neighbors. You give them to anyone outside of Cory, we don't deliver to them. They got to come and pick them up. But outside of Cory can obviously buy a tree from us. That's not a problem. And last but not least, our sponsors are here. They have a table in back for coats. It's Crystal and Lily. Please stand up, show yourselves. They're with Intero Real Estate. Give them a couple words on the coat program.
Hi, Cory Neighborhood. I'm Crystal.
I'm Lily.
And we're your neighborhood realtors, and we are having a coat drive. We're partnering with One Warm Coat. So if you have any lightly used coats that you'd like to donate, please feel free to drop them in the box in the back, or give us a text or a call, and we can pick it up from you as well.
Yep, just like we did before we got here. As your realtors, we're always here to lend a hand to you guys. It's been wonderful. Art, thank you so much for allowing us to participate in the dumpster day. We were able to connect with a lot of you, and we look forward to connecting with more of you.
I got a question before you get started.
Yeah.
I got an email from the planning department on Friday saying they were going to alert the neighborhood association to the community hearing on that building at Winchester and Henning.
All right. I haven't got the email yet.
So will the neighborhood association be letting us know?
I'll definitely let you know. Yeah. Okay, so what she's saying is she received an email that the city planning department is going to send, I'm assuming me or maybe to our webpage, a notice that they're going to do public hearings. All right, I have not received that. I don't think the website has either. But once I do, obviously, I'll send it to you. I'll put it on the website. Everyone will know. So, all right. Now, let's begin. Oh, by the way, if you did, we had like 120 unique people that came to the dumpster day. There were people that came 2 or 3 times, so I'm thinking over 150, maybe 160 people actually participated. And we brought a dozen donuts, but they brought 3 dozen. So if you come in and sign in, we gave donuts out. So if you missed it, you missed donuts. And there's canned donuts. Right? We're not talking regular, just good stuff. All right, without further ado, we know her, Deb Davis, our councilwoman. Let's give her a big hand.
Hey everybody. I want to thank Art and Kirk and all the volunteers who participated in the dumpster day. You guys don't even need us anymore. You do the smoothest dumpster day, I think, in all of the city, but definitely in all of District 6. So thank you for doing that. I do hope you participated. You guys always have great leadership and great commitment from your neighborhood association. So thank you. Couple of things. I don't know if I talked about this at the last meeting. I think it happened within the last 3 months. We renamed the rotunda. So the rotunda at City Hall did not have a name other than the rotunda, and it is now named the Janet Gray Hayes rotunda. So we did that over the last couple of months, and we're going to have a party to kind of unveil the signage, which has been ordered in December, but I don't have a date on that.
November 19th, 5 o'clock.
Wendy has it.
Tuesday, November 19th, 5 o'clock.
Thank you. I couldn't remember when it was. Tuesday, November 19th at 5 o'clock. Yeah. So you're welcome to come to that, and it's a city council day, and so there will be parking validation available, so you can park in the garage. We also, for those of you who have been following the Blue Zones project, we had an assessment feasibility report that came out last Tuesday at both City Council and also at the County Board of Supervisors. Both boards passed it unanimously and also gave their staffs direction to work together to do an inventory of resources and needs in the 3 pilot zip codes. So that's 95111, 95122, and then the one I always forget because it doesn't have repeating numbers. But it's they're all 3, the Santee, Seven Trees, and Mayfair Cookaway area, so all on the east side. So we hope that we will be able to raise the $19 million to be able to do a full Blue Zones project and improve the health and longevity of our community. So that's kind of an ongoing project that will outlive me, but I will keep working on it after I'm out of office in the next 64 days. So I'm terming out, and there will be a terming out party that you are all invited to on December 19th, and that's at 5:30, and that'll be at City Hall as well. So that's also on my newsletter. I'm sure that you all received my newsletter by now. And of course, we're going to have a new council member in the next couple of weeks. And we have a very long turnover list for that council member, and I hope that council member elect has cleared their schedule for November and December, because we have a lot of things for them to do so that they can hit the ground running when they start in January. So yeah, that's what our last 2 months are going to look like. And I don't have any other big things. I just do want to say it has been such an honor to serve you over the last 8 years, and I can't say I've enjoyed every single minute of it because we've had a pandemic and flood and all sorts of things, but it really has been the honor of a lifetime to serve this district, and your neighborhood has always been so gracious and so wonderful. You have, I know I say this probably every time, you have the best turnout of any neighborhood association, and you guys all have such great programs. You have really good leadership here, and I've just really enjoyed being your council member. So thank you. And I'm happy to take questions if you have questions. I probably don't have a whole lot of answers. I'm down to 2 staff people as of today from 3, so everybody's finding their next gig, understandably so. And yeah, so we're just trying to keep the lights on. Yeah.
What has been your favorite part about being our council member for the last week?
Well, thank you for asking that. My favorite part has really been when the scouting groups have come to City Hall, and they always have really good questions about government and what I do for them and what I do in general. And then they get to learn a little bit about government. That's always been my favorite part. Yeah. That's a great question, and I don't have an answer for that yet. So if anybody needs someone who's good at strategy and likes to talk, I'm your girl, so let me know. I'm looking for work. Any other questions? You can ask me those real questions. It's okay. All right. Going easy on me today. Thank you.
The only work for now is bad side. don't see Susan Ellenberg here. Oh, Victor's here. All right. Victor, who is Santiago, right? Yeah. He's the aide for Susan Ellenberg, our supervisor, county supervisor. So please welcome Victor.
Good evening, everybody. I am not Susan Ellenberg. My name is Victor Santiago, and I'm the Community Relations Aide for Supervisor Ellenberg. So if you have any county-related questions, you are more than welcome to come see me. I'm stationed right at the back. I have business cards, and I'm ready to go. So I'm not going to take up too much of your time, so I'm going to do some quick county plugs. Our office is looking for county commissioners. We currently have 2 positions open. One for our Child Abuse Prevention Council and one for our Domestic Violence Council. These will be appointed by Supervisor Ellenberg herself, so if you have any interest in applying, please come see me and I'll give you my business card and we'll make it happen. Next, the county has a trade orientation program free for anyone over 18, which is designed to help you explore and find a career in the trades. If you are interested or have anyone that is interested, please come see me and I'm happy to help you work that out as well. My last little announcement was that earlier in October, Art Maurice was chosen by Supervisor Ellenberg as one of our community champions, and he was able to walk with us at the Parade of Champions in St. Clair. So if we get a round of applause. So now I'll open the floor to questions if you have any, and if not, I'm at the back and you can ask me whatever you'd like. Thank you, everyone. Hope you have a good one.
Is that right? Yeah, about that, Mark. So I got nominated from this little area, and they give you a sash and a little plaque. And then you march in the parade. I don't know if you remember, but back then it was a hot day, and I wore my black t-shirt saying Cory. And you walk in, you go 2 steps, stop. I was walking like an hour in the hot sun. You gotta be kidding me! Move! And then we took this corner, and the car that Susan did took off. She was going like 15 miles an hour. Like, I can't run that fast. What are you talking about? So it was fun. I had a good time. All in fun. Thank you for the award. I appreciate it. Hey, these things happen, right? We've all done stuff. And so, I just got a text from our senator. She said she's on her way, but I don't see her in the back. So, yeah, but Matt, you're going to probably go for like half an hour?
Depends.
All right. Well, we're going to jump right ahead to Matthew because the table, government table, is a neat program. I wanted to show everyone that. They're not getting here till 7. So Matthew, come on up. We'll jump you ahead. Everyone, this is Matthew Schneiderman. He's with PG&E. Now, I originally said that he was going to talk about neighborhood power grids, but he said we don't qualify, so he's just going to talk about PG&E and special programs they have for us. So please welcome Matthew.
Good evening, everybody. I feel like I'm a little out of place because I'm writing actual paper, not a phone. So I need a bigger phone or better glasses. Yeah, no worries. Thank you. But I'll just introduce myself. So my name is Matthew Schneiderman. I'm the regional senior manager for the South Bay. So our region is made up of South Bay and Central Coast. So Santa Clara County and a whole bunch of other counties southwest. The one I care about is Santa Clara. Ultimately, that's my area of responsibility within the local customer experience organization. So I roll for the regional vice president. And I forgot to say thank you, Art, very much for having me in the association. I really appreciate the time today. Feel free to stop me if you guys have any questions. I was really excited to come here today, and so I probably added too many slides. So some of them I'm going to go relatively quickly, other ones I'll focus a little bit more. So bear with me. Go to the next So again, this is kind of our whole region. So back in the recent bankruptcy, when we filed for our business, we had to set up as regional teams, right? And the key about the regional teams is that you've got a regional vice president, and that person can make a lot of the decisions locally, and there's a team of local people who can manage our area, kind of like a small PG&E. Obviously, there's still a CEO, board of directors, all those things, but a lot more is happening locally, and we all live and work here. I mean, I live 12 minutes away from here, so this is my neighborhood, my community also. So there's a lot at stake for me as well, and I'm really happy to serve you guys. I want to make sure that I answer all of your questions, by the way, so I've got my email address at the end of the presentation. If I can't get to whatever it is you guys have questions about today, just so you know. Let's move on to the next slide. So this is one of the slides I'm going to go over relatively quickly, but just in terms of like PG&E's reach and influence on California, our territory is 2/3 of the entire state, right? So we contribute significantly to the state. All our employees are here. We've got close to 27,000 employees, but we contribute a lot to the state. I don't think people realize that. We feel indebted to the state for allowing us to serve you guys, and you know, as you can see, some of those numbers are really big in terms of just like even things like taxes, right? We're a business team, we pay taxes to the state, so big contribution. So let's go ahead and move on. So this is more about our region in particular, and it's not broken down by Santa Clara County, which you can imagine with these numbers. Santa Clara County makes up a really big part of these numbers, especially when it comes to population, right? We have about 1.1 million electric customers, just under 800,000 gas customers, and about 2,300 employees, including myself, working to serve you guys every day. I thought it would be interesting to talk about a couple of recent projects, just so you have like a feel for kind of me and the regional team, like what we do. There was a project not too close to here on Hamilton Avenue between Bascom and Winchester. We replaced a really big long section of gas pipe. It used to be plastic, a type of plastic called Adelaide, and over time it degrades, and so we replaced all of it. That's a big safety and reliability thing from a gas perspective. Closer to here, much closer to here, last year I believe it was, we separated O'Connor Hospital and Valley Medical on what we call feeders or circuit. So back in 2022, we had a big heat wave, I'm sure you guys all remember it. Power and both hospitals went out because they were on the same feeder. Obviously, that's a health and safety issue, and we didn't like that. Neither did the county or the city, frankly. So we worked very quickly, and within about 8 or 9 months, we had those two hospitals separated. So now there's a lot more reliability, so at least one hospital is on at all times. So those are the kinds of things that my team would get involved with, what we hear to advocate for those types of projects. You can imagine there's a lot of projects that come through, and so something I do is push for that stuff, really for all of you. All right, let's go on. So what are we doing for safety and reliability? You'll hear me say these three words a lot: safe, reliable, and affordable. And I know affordable is a bit of a hot topic these days with our rates. I recognize that. I will address what I can of that piece of it. I don't set the rates myself. But safe, reliable, and affordable energy is always our goal. And I can confidently say with the newest leadership team, Patty Coffey and her team, that's definitely something they're looking towards. And I'll talk more about what we're doing in that way. We're trying to use advanced technology. We're rebuilding our electric system from the bottom up, preventing wildfires. I'm sure you've heard all about that. Improving reliability and reducing costs really in the long term. Wildfire prevention is only one part of it, right? But there's all kinds of things that we're doing in terms of trying to improve reliability overall, which means less outages, more uptime, right? Capacity. We live in Silicon Valley, a lot of big companies here, a lot of data centers, which use a lot of power, right? So trying to make sure we get enough power to serve all of them, which serves all of our devices, right? So let's move on to the next one. All right, so what are we doing to plan for the future? I'm sure you're all aware of, building codes changing, and now, new houses can only have electric in certain places, and that is expanding, right? So obviously that places more on the grid, right? Which makes it a little bit more difficult for us as that load increases, often more quickly than we can keep up. It becomes a challenge for us, right? But that's one of the many challenges that we have. So we've been investing in our infrastructure, implementing new systems and processes, and addressing challenges like electrification, like I just mentioned, decarbonization and climate change, right? I personally believe in climate change, but I think it's definitely impacting our business. But this isn't something that we can really do alone, right? So what we do is we partner with entrepreneurs, thought leaders, national research laboratories, government agencies and utilities to collaborate and try to find, like, what is the latest, greatest, right? What are the new technologies? When people think of a utility, they don't always think like, ooh, exciting, like cutting edge technology. That's something that's very real, and that's one of those things that's going to bring us into the next phase of our energy future, right? When you look at, again, all the electric buildings, the electric vehicles, which has significantly increased over the years. I can't go anywhere without seeing a Tesla or a car, right? But that's the reality, right? That's something people are really interested in. Move on to the next one. And if I'm going too fast, please stop. Or if I'm not going fast enough, please let me go fast. So, the other piece to this, and I talked about this a little bit, is the fact that there's like this regional team, right? Nobody goes into the utility thinking, oh, I'm going to be a billionaire, right? It's really about servant leadership, and we're really proud to be doing this work. I get up every day and I solve problems for customers, whether that's a residential customer or Google, right? It makes me feel good to do that. So dealing with customers and managing customer issues and challenges and helping them, that's one thing, right? We also spend hours upon hours volunteering. There's something called Hunger at Home that we're doing in a couple of weeks over at the earthquakes, right? That's really, really enjoy that. We give a lot of money away to charitable giving, things like the Eastside Union High School District, Hispanic Foundation of Silicon Valley, San Jose State Tower Fund is a good one, and San Jose Parks. Just saying food. Yes, sir.
Aren't you giving ratepayer money away?
It's
We pay our bill, and then PG&E makes political contributions and gives, when you should really kind of run it as just a profit to pay your people.
Yes, so the charitable budget is different, and I'm not the expert in that, so I'd be remiss if I try to answer that directly. But I would say the answer is no. It's not coming from the ratepayers. So you've got a corporation that has money from shareholders, right? And you've got the ratepayer funds. It's not the same bucket. I will get an exact answer for you because that is not something I was prepared to answer. I honestly don't know the full answer. So I don't want to give you the wrong information. But it's a very, very good question. I totally get it. So I talked about system reliability, and our goal is to ultimately build a system at the lowest price, right? Wildfire risk reduction is a huge piece of what we've been doing. Anybody who lives in California the last 5 years knows about the wildfires, so it's a huge piece of what we're doing from a safety standpoint. Improved gas safety and reliability. I talked about the project on Hamilton. That's one of many projects that we have. Electric capacity, that's another piece of it, with all the electric vehicles, the different building codes and things like that. I'm actually going to move on because I want to get to some of the other stuff. So I talked a lot about affordability, right? Oh, I can't see that. Yes.
My name's Lindy Hayes. I'm the one that contacted you in the first place.
Hi.
I think what we really want to know is how do we save money on our monthly bills? And what do we do to protect our own homes? This is not really what we would like to hear about. We want to hear about us and how we save money and what we can do to protect ourselves.
Sure. We can go ahead and skip ahead. Let's see. Well, you asked about emergency preparedness. Would you like me to cover that too, or you just want me to focus on the affordability stuff?
We appreciate that. This is, share what you can. This is obviously
fair. So talking about saving money and affordability, right? And this is piece of it, okay? So as a company, like most companies, we have to look at our operations, we have to look at our business processes and say, is this the right way to do it, right? Is there waste in that process? So we started doing that a lot more, right? And I talked about the latest administration in PG&E, and this is something that they're very, very focused on waste elimination. These numbers are from 2023. I don't have the numbers yet for 2024 because the year's not over, but I imagine you'll see some bigger numbers. And this is just one example, or 3 examples, I should say, of what we're doing to try and use the same pot of money better than we've used it in the past. We get a certain amount of money allowed to us by the PUC, right? We don't make more profit as people use more electricity. That's not how this business works. But if we can use the same pie of money to fund more and better things in terms of reliability and capacity, that's better for all of us, frankly. And to be clear, I'm a ratepayer too, right? And I have to get gas and electricity as well. So I pay my money just like everybody else. So this will go over very quickly. This is something that's implemented at the company, and this is where a lot of waste elimination comes from. Who in here knows sort of lean or lean Six Sigma? Okay. So for those of you who know, right, this is a type of process improvement, right, or continuous improvement, and this is something that has become a part of our culture, and this is something that we're doing all the time, and this is something that I'm very involved with locally, with, again, ultimately the goal of significant waste reduction so that it can go back into kind of the infrastructure and the investments, things that we want to do. All right, so on to the stuff that I was asked to come here originally for, and I just wanted to give you a background because a lot has changed at this company, frankly. I've been at PG&E for 14 years. The last 5 have been the most interesting, and I say the most interesting because I've seen the most positive change outwardly towards customers in that short period of time, and I'm really proud of that. Frankly, I wouldn't have stayed at the same place for 14 years if I didn't believe in what we were doing. So let's move on to emergency preparedness, because I believe that was one of the things that they had questions about. So, we talk about wildfires, but I recognize we're in the city, right? So, like, how do you prepare for an emergency in the city? Well, some of it's the same and some of it's different, right? There are plenty of trees in this city. There are plenty of trees that are under power lines, next to power lines, in some cases touching power lines, right? Which causes power outages. So we need to make sure that those are all safe, right? Making sure that crews have access to things. Some of you may have poles in your backyard, right? People build fences up against our poles all the time. I can't tell you, that's crazy. Because if we can't get a truck there with a bucket, somebody has to climb it. And if there's a fence in the way, then that just makes everything take longer, and it's not as safe, right? So making sure that people can get to your gas and electric meters, those types of things, that's one way to ensure your safety. Plant the right tree in the right place. Pretty please, don't plant trees under a power line if you have a choice, especially palm, by the way. Those are like the worst of all of them. There are lots of palms in San Jose. Let's not add any more. Seriously, they cause a lot of issues for us. They're great, but they're just a challenge. And then the other thing I would say is just maintaining defensible space, right? And it sounds like to a lot of people this is something only worry about in the mountains, but if you've got a lot of, I don't know, trash or yard debris, right, and your neighbor's house catches on fire for whatever reason, and it does happen, that could cause your house to be on fire too. So, right, so maintaining that defensible space, that's really important. The last thing I'll say, if you're going to do any digging, and this is not on the slide, who's heard of 811? Yes, we're doing our job. Okay, please call 811 if you're going to move any dirt. Please. So many calls we get for people digging into a gas line or an electric line or a sewer line or water line. It's really expensive for the homeowner, especially if they haven't called. You will get billed back for that, not just by us, by everybody. So that's a really big, important lesson. Fences are like the worst contributing factor to that all. All right, so let's move on. So the other thing I'll talk about is just having an emergency plan, right? We at PG&E are always focused on safety because we've got guys up in buckets and we've got guys in ditches, and it can be really dangerous. But you know, they're talking about this stuff every day. We're not all of us necessarily primed for that. The best thing I can recommend is to have a safety kit at home, to have some sort of safety kit in your car, and to have a plan, right? Emergencies are stressful. We all live in earthquake country. I don't know who was here in '89, but I didn't have a plan. The house moved a lot. It was really scary. So just have a plan, you guys. That's really the bulk of it in terms of emergency preparedness. It's not rocket science. Have a list, right? Have a list of contacts. Know where you're going to meet if you get separated. We have a ton of resources online, so I'm going to move on from this one. A lot of resources, like a lot. Oh, and there's the resources. Perfect. So wildfire safety, if you guys are interested in wildfire safety, there's a ton of information. Our Safety Action Center, which talks a lot about emergency preparedness and our emergency plan. And then 211, I don't know how many folks know about 211, but it is a really good resource for folks, especially during emergencies. It's a free resource. It's something that all the utilities in the state have worked together on, and they all work really closely together. So again, great during an emergency, even if you don't have an emergency, they can provide a lot of resources to you. And it's all different types of resources. It's not just like one thing. Yeah, it's let me get back to you on, but well, there's a ton of different things, right? So like it can so let's say you need a cooling center or a heating center, or you need some sort of, like, you're in danger, but it's not like call police and like you're sort of an access and functional needs type of challenges, like they can help with that. So if I can get you a lot more information, I'm not the expert on 211 either. I'm more of a generalist, as you can see. Their website is really good, actually, and they have a ton of stuff. All right, so savings programs. All right, here we go. This is my favorite one. All right, so up on the screen, you'll see a dollar bill, right? And what's really interesting to note, people are, tell me all the time, hey Matt, you work for PG&E, why are your bills so high? Well, some of the portion of your bill, about a third of it, is not PG&E at all, right? It's state programs. It's wildfire prevention, it's tree trimming, there's a renewable portfolio standard, there's public purpose programs, right? All of these things are kind of state mandated for utilities to provide, right? But they all cost money, right? So that's a huge portion of that. Another third of that is generation and how we procure your energy, right? Obviously there's a cost to that too. Operations and maintenance, and then you'll notice the authorized earnings, and I kind of alluded to this earlier. We don't make more money as people use more electric and gas. Our authorized earnings are very low, right? In terms of a percentage of your total bill. And I think some people are shocked when they see this, because people just don't know, and you haven't seen this before, you don't know. What I will say is every 3 years we have a general rate case with the Public Utilities Commission, and that's where we say, hey, state of California, we need X amount of money for our reliability work, for our maintenance work, for growth, all of those things, right? After that, they say, okay, here's your authorized earnings that you can make. If we make more than that for some reason, it comes back in lower rates. If we make less than that, we have to raise rates to meet the difference because we still have to do all of that work, right? And that's it. That's a public process. Everybody has access to do that stuff.
Where's salary then?
Some of it's in operations. That's a really good question. I don't know exactly where salaries fall in, but a huge portion of it is in operations. Just because you've got, you see the guys out in the trucks. All of those guys have to get paid, right? But they're, I think Charlene in the back is taking notes, and I can get back to you on where that fits. So I would say, kind of in summary, right, we're trying to reduce, by reducing our operating and material costs, solving for wildfire risk, which is a big deal, right, spreading costs over the long term where we're able to do so, right, so there aren't spikes in prices. Amending state policies, which again takes a lot longer. We have to advocate with the PUC, but that is something that we do on a regular basis. And seek other types of funding to pay for safety and reliability work, right? We're trying to be a very healthy utility. The healthier we are, the more likely people want to invest in us. We are a public utility, right? Some of that money comes from those investments. Well, if we're not a healthy utility, people don't want to invest in it. We have to look elsewhere and the funding is more expensive, right? So the healthier we are, the less those investments cost. All right, so what are some of our savings programs? So, yes.
Windows down at the bottom, it talks about how solar customers pay 15% less for grid costs and
Non-solar customers.
so on that, is that the same? So I know that the solar rates have changed over time. There's like legacy policy programs and things. Does that apply equally, or is that an average, or has that amount changed as well?
I'm sorry. I just want to make sure I understand. I mean, I think generally speaking, I think this is an average, right? The programs have changed quite a bit, right? California solar programs kind of went away, and then you got NEM 2.0 and NEM 3.0, right? So it has changed, but I'm not 100%, but I'm willing to bet that is more than average. Because it's across the whole territory, right? So some people are paying more, some people are paying a little bit less. But non-solar customers are paying more because it's offsetting what the solar customers are paying, right? And that's just kind of the way the system, not that it's good or bad, it's just the way the system is. Yes?
I was just in North Carolina during the Hurricane Helene, and there were people there from all over the country with linesmen helping to restore electricity. Who puts the bill for that kind of thing? Who pays for linesmen to go there from Wisconsin and Michigan?
Sure. I mean, some of those, so we have what's called mutual aid, right? So a lot of utility companies will send linemen to other states. I mean, it's a very tight-knit community, especially the lineman community. To my knowledge, it's usually those companies paying for their linemen to go to those other states, but it's really a show of goodwill. We sent people there as well. We had crews go to Florida and Georgia as well. And that's, there's a lot of independent companies too, frankly, that travel around looking for storms. And I mean, I don't want to call them storm chasers, but they make a lot of money. They work 6 months out of the year and then they take the rest of the year off. But they're working like 24 hours a day, right?
Well, they were working online 16, 17 hours a day.
Yeah. And
We saw some of them in restaurants to eat at like 9 o'clock at night.
And that's pretty common. During a storm response, they'll work 16 hours on and 8 hours off. That's pretty standard. It's a good question.
Can I just follow up on the non-solar customer rates? Is it the non-solar customers are paying more like kilowatt hour, like we're paying a higher rate, or is it just because you get solar that decreases your overall bill? Like how is that?
It's basically, it's like subsidizing what they're not using, right? So
like transmission lines, distribution, because solar customers aren't using that?
similarly, I mean, I don't know all the intricate details of the rates, but it's basically supplementing or subsidizing what the solar folks are no longer using, right? Like we procure, let's say we procure enough energy for 5 million people, right? Let's say 100,000 of them now go to solar. We've paid for the 5 million, right? So that cost has to be offset somewhere. So it ends up, it is by kilowatt hour, but I don't think it's like a straight calculation like that.
What is, and I'm ignorant on where the funding comes from for solar incentive programs, but how is PG&E continuing, or are they continuing
get back to you on that because I don't. I used to be very familiar with those programs, and they've changed a lot. The California Solar Incentive Program, right? That was like the big one, and then that stopped. And then recently we went to NEM 2.0.
Were those PG programs or were those state programs?
The California Solar Initiative was the state. Yeah.
And then net programs?
It's utility based, but it's not just PG&E. Sure. By the way, Art, how are we doing on time?
Just about that.
I figured as much. Okay, so just a couple of things, right? So savings programs, we have savings programs for income qualified customers. I'm not going to go through all of these, right? I will say our website has all of the same information, by the way, just for the record. But the REACH program, the CARE program, the FAIR program are really good for income qualified. If you go to the next slide, there's more support for all customers, right? So there's things like budget billing, which basically averages out the cost, so you pay more of a straight cost. The home energy checkup tool, that's a real easy thing. You can go online, do a survey for your home, and find where you might find savings and things like that. Go Green home energy financing, which I'm not super familiar with, and energy efficiency financing. So for those of you who have businesses, this is a great way to potentially get some no interest loans for some of those programs. Skip the energy checkup. So I guess in summary, I appreciate you allowing me to come speak here today. I don't have all the answers. We're also not the perfect utility, right? And we have a long way to go to build a trust factor with the community. But I definitely want to be available for folks who have questions. If I was able to answer your question, let me know. That's my email address. You can email me, and I will find the answer to your question. But that's all. Thank you, guys.
All right, I know you probably think I'm also the best speaker. What's the point of saying so? Let's say, because we got one heck of a speaker coming up. It's our state senator, Aisha Wahab, and of course she can't say she's going to talk. She's going to introduce herself. She's going to tell us some of the programs that are of interest to us, that she's going to lead. All right, but here she is. Please welcome our senator.
Thank you, guys. I will say that I know that more people are interested in PG&E and figuring out how to lower rates, especially at this time. So I am Dr. Aisha Wahab. I represent this area, so basically about a third of San Jose, all the way up to about the East Bay and Hayward, the unincorporated in both sections of both counties, Alameda County and Santa Clara County. And I kind of wanted to just highlight a little bit about what we do. So I'm finishing up my second year, and I grew up in this district. I think it's incredibly important to be able to elevate the needs of this district in a way that I feel like we haven't been represented. And I want to highlight this because it's a couple of things. So when we're talking about the state of California, we sometimes get overshadowed by many issues in LA and then San Francisco. And that is what I technically have to battle in the state of California. Because even though we belong to the Bay Area, we are not identical to the issues that are in San Francisco. That's the honest truth, right? I was raised largely in the Fremont area. I went to school in San Jose, and it's a different vibe. When you work here and you commute, and we have loved ones that commute further and further away. Just because, let's be honest, the housing is cheaper further away, but the jobs are still here, right? And so one of the biggest issues that I have is housing. And when I was on Hayward City Council, I made sure that we prioritized affordable housing. And the reason why it's very personal to me, I grew up in the foster care system. And I think that having social safety nets is one of the biggest priorities of any community, period. And during the Great Recession, my parents had a small business. That business slowly started to tank because it's retail. Retail is the first thing to tank when you're trying to save a buck. You're like, let
not going to go out, I'm not going to buy, I'm not going to spend. We're seeing that slowly now, again. And once that business started to tank, because both of them work in that business, our homes were closed on us, right? And we did that deal that the government said, you work with banks for a year, you make your payments, you keep your home. And that did not happen, all right? It didn't happen for my family, it didn't happen for millions of Americans across the board. And I always say that the banks were bailed out twice, right? They were given a cash infusion because the banks were too big to fail. And then they kept the assets of millions of Americans, right? And they resold those assets, right? And that's the honest truth of what really happened, right? And I take a look at this district and I get very frustrated myself. I talk to the city councils pretty regularly, and the cities are responsible for land use issues, right? So developments, housing, the rents, any type of thing like that. And the average home cost is about $1.4 million here, right? Even the new developments that they say is affordable, let's say the starter homes, and developers really, really love right now condos and townhomes. Okay, that's their big thing right now, right? Because they just smush them all together. No real backyard, no front yard, no space, nothing. Let's be honest, there's no real gardens or anything like that. Yet they have a nice fat HOA fee. And the starter homes are about $700,000 plus. So who can afford that, right? And so if we, this is something I deeply care about, our fastest growing population amongst the homeless is our senior population. Really think about it for 2 seconds, right? Our fastest growing population amongst the homeless is parents, right? And so forth, right? Our fastest population going back into the workforce is the senior population, right? It's those folks that, if you go to Denny's or IHOP or McDonald's, you're seeing more and more seniors go back to the workforce, right? And they cannot afford what is happening now. Now, California in 2019 passed a law that is temporary, that says we have a rent ceiling of about 10%. It's like 5% plus CPI, which is consumer price index, right? So rents can't go up more than 10% year over year, right? The problem with that, and I do have a problem with it, is the fact that if you are a police officer, one of the highest paid city employees, backed with a very strong union, you do not get a 5% increase in pay year over year. Let alone people who are not represented by a strong union, let alone people that work, jobs for smaller businesses, things like that. We know inflation has beat us, right? We know that the mortgage rates are ridiculous. We know that things keep going up, cost of goods, and people keep blaming COVID and so forth. And you and I both know that there were some supply shortages that weren't realistic, right? People were fighting over toilet paper made in America and made in Mexico, right? It's not coming from overseas and being trapped in the sea and so forth. So there's a lot there that is problematic for me, right? And the reason why I ran for office in the first place was, I really do prioritize housing at all income levels, right? And, we have colleagues that talk about social housing, right, as a concept, and I want to highlight that social housing is done throughout the world, regardless of the type of government, regardless of the economy of a government, right? And it just gives a little bit more of a balance of scale. It's not public housing. I do want to highlight there is a difference there.
What is social housing?
Social housing allows for the tenants or the homeowners to be able to work in collaboration to ensure that pricing and some of the needs that they have, whether it's disability rights, whether it's the structure of it, whether if they are seeing huge increases and so forth, that they have some say in it. And right now, tenants don't really have a say, right? And I will say also, even in the foreclosure market, and we're seeing more foreclosures. I do want to be very crystal clear about that, right? The courts during COVID and a little while after COVID we're not taking any cases, right? We're seeing an uptick in that, right? And so, for example, the city of Hayward invests roughly $60,000 to $100,000 a year as a city with a partnership with a legal firm that provides tenant support. So if they have a dispute with the landlord, if there's a contract dispute, things like that. Most cities don't do that, right? And again, our fastest growing homeless population, our fastest growing concerns, and our number one issue across every single city does a poll that says, what are the residents' concerns? I'm sure some of you guys have received a call that says, would you like to participate in the survey? The number one issue across the state is housing and homelessness. Second is public safety, right? Third is economy. Fourth is usually jobs or education, right? So I highlight these issues because this is what we want to tackle. Number one, we were able to get the very first social housing bill ever signed into law in the United States by Governor Newsom this past year in 2023. One of our first big bills that could potentially create where the government develops land and housing, right? There is no real big profit margins, right? It's just fairness across the board, right? And that is going to be studied. Potentially a social housing authority will be created and much more. The other things that we have focused on, and I will say that this year we're going to be trying to prioritize as much as possible affordability issues, right? So we talk to utilities, we talk to about a lot of different things, and I've been pushing this in our Democratic caucus, saying, I don't feel like we're actually meeting the needs of a lot of constituents. I'm gonna be very honest with you guys. Me being in Sacramento, I am one of 40 senators in the entire state. I am the only renter, right? All of renters' issues are completely crushed because I am one of 40, right? And renters' issues don't actually go through the Senate Housing Committee. It goes through judiciary because they view it as a legal contract. And we all know that legal contracts usually side with lawyers. I'm also not a lawyer, right? So I have to deal with a lot of lawyers that try to tell me, what they think is best, not caring about the human issue, right? And so I will say, I tried to push this past year a transit consolidation effort. Okay, so we're in the Bay Area, and our public transit is not the greatest. Let's be honest about that, right? The fact that I can drive faster than BART, right? That rapid transit is a joke, right? The reality is we have 27 transit agencies in the 9 Bay Area counties. Why, right? And that was, they said that was super controversial. That how did you introduce this? And I got so many people opposed, and I said, look guys, labor, the agencies, the administration can all be upset about it. But the average public doesn't understand why. I'm sure you guys saw in the news that by 2030 they want to increase the tolls to $11. Why? Right? And why are we subsidizing, again, San Francisco, for the most part, does have far more tourism, does have, I'm realistic about what's going on here, right? I understand what are economic hubs, what attracts people to California and the Bay and so forth. But I also am tired of paying over and over and over to a failing system, to a system that I don't really use, to be honest with you all. And then we have an elitist system in the freeways with fast track that if you pay more, you can go faster. And if you don't want to pay, you go slower, right? That's not fair, right? And so more and more I see policies being created and ideas that, are Band-Aid, Band-Aid, Band-Aid. And they keep taking from the transit funds. Every agency can be created by their city, by their county, by a joint powers authority, right? There's no real uniform way of creating an agency. Hence we have 27 agencies, not including the Ubers and the Lyfts and the Waymos and all the other things, right? And they're asking for more money year over year. And I said, if you guys don't come to the table today, you will be forced to see massive layoffs and a failed system, right? And so we have these tough conversations, and I'll be honest with you, people say that, I rock the boat too much, and the reality is, let's just have the honest conversation. I said, I know that my district will fully support what I'm saying if they hear all the facts, right? What is happening is not fair to the working class or middle class families, period, right? Especially if you are part of my generation, which is the sandwich generation of, I gotta take care of my parents as they're aging, I potentially want to start a family, I probably already have a family, I have student loan debt, I have a job to do, I'm trying to compete internationally for these jobs, right? For this housing. How much more can a home be sold $500,000 over asking, right? It's ridiculous at a certain point, right? So I've had conversations not only with our Senate leadership, but also with our Vice President, who has taken housing as a core issue that she wants to focus on. But one of the most important things, and I do just want to highlight this, and I'm happy to answer any questions, is that I genuinely feel that I have to represent this district as I am being overshadowed by some of the bigger players, right? The cities that get all the attention, cities that get all the money, right? And the more and more we focus on saying like, hey, the South Bay and the East Bay aren't the same as San Francisco. We have different issues. We care about different things, right? And I want to highlight that, one of the positions I have, I am the assistant majority leader, and, being able to do that for, within 2 years is quite a feat, but I'm also the chair of public safety from a policy perspective, and chair of budget sub 5, which covers public safety, transportation, labor, judiciary, and a number of other things, right? And the cuts that we made, and I want to be very clear, as an example. So the Department of Corrections has been seeing a downward trend for the population that they house, right?
That's good.
Yes. However, they're being housed in our local county jails now because of federal laws that have been pushed on us. And their budget is 15 billion, 14 billion something, but let's round it up to 15 billion. The governor released a budget, his first budget statement that's released as a preliminary budget in January last year, or this past year, and he requested that $15 million be cut from the Department of Corrections, okay? Do the math, that's nothing, all right? 15 million of a $15 billion budget. And social services, education are the first thing to go when we are talking about a budget cut, right? Why? Because similar to renters, similar to myself, we don't have massive lobbying movements in the building, right? And so I suggested that they meet a certain percentage. It was in my first meeting, I announced it. We cut nearly about $750 million. And we were able to protect education, and we were able to protect social services across the board, right? That is my goal, is to make sure we are advocating for the most vulnerable communities. And again, I grew up in foster care. I know what it means to rely on a neighbor, to rely on a friend, to rely on a teacher for just support, right? Whether or not we have too much pride to ask for it, somebody has to be having our backs, right? And so with that, I will also say we introduced, there's a lot of misinformation in the media and the public. And I will say the media, generally these 2-minute sound bites don't give you the full story, right? And I absolutely hate it. What ends up happening is that, yes, we have seen the break-ins. My car has been broken into. My father's car was stolen from our parking lot, right? Things like this happen here in the Bay Area and across the state. But we passed introduced 14 bills that the National Association of Retailers supported, a lot of different law enforcement, the chiefs supported, and much more. I introduced a bill that basically makes organized retail theft a crime. Long overdue, right? So this is common sense things, and the honest truth is that we're trying to work with everybody and pass reasonable bills, right? And some of the bills, and we were very, very fortunate to this year have 16 of our bills signed into law by the governor this year. And I'm very proud of that number because we're limited in how many bills we can introduce. And I introduced a number of AI bills that protect children and women in particular in this AI space of, you know, you guys read the news and see the news, right? As well as, you know, court-ordered meds for folks, and a number of public safety bills, as well as some health and aging, a payment source discrimination bill that basically says, you know, there has to be equitable treatment of Medi-Cal residents at skilled nursing facilities. You can't refuse a bed because somebody has Medi-Cal. You know, continuing care retirement communities, skilled nursing, you know, efforts, and, you know, our substance abuse, and I want to highlight this too. Our number one abusers of substance abuse, if you will, or drugs, we talk about fentanyl a lot, is also our senior population, right? And that's because it's overprescribed, people get hooked on it, it is substance abuse and so forth. And I want to highlight this because it's incredibly important based on the experts we've talked to. What we push is to make sure that, you know, health plans and insurers establish a process to reimburse providers for mental health and substance abuse, substance use disorder treatments that are within your primary care. So you could go to your normal doctor instead of a specialist and get all, you know, all the hoops that we have to jump through in our medical system here. So, you know, I want to highlight a lot of this because it is important to just, you know, understand that, you know, for me, a lot of the bills that we introduced were bipartisan, right? I don't really care if you're Republican or Democrat. I want to work with everybody because if it's a good policy, most people will agree with it, right? We're not talking about the extremists, you know, the stuff that we're seeing in the news and things like that. Is if you talk to the senators up in the northern counties, like touching the Oregon border, many of them agree with some of the policies, right? Especially, you know, when it comes to our, you know, aging population, our children, and much more. When it comes to, you know, common sense bills about public safety or whatever else the case is. So I want to highlight this because there is a lot of good work that California is doing. It's not often highlighted. Every single bill is not going to get attention. You know, I had a bill that died that I was very sad about. It's to allow Medi-Cal patients to be able to get a dental implant. You know, if you go to the dentist, they'll pull out a lot of teeth, right? 12 teeth, if it may be, but they won't give it a real legitimate replacement, right? And it was bipartisan, bicameral, and eventually that was killed because the Department of Health on the state side said it's going to cost too much money. Last August, in 2023, I met with them and I said, I want to do this bill for the upcoming year. How many dental implants have you guys done? We're still waiting on that number. That's the sad part, right? And every time we met with them, they had a whole team of people. It was like 10 people in these calls. And they couldn't provide us the data because the honest truth is they haven't done anything, right? So what we learned when we looked into their rules and their laws and so forth is that you have to almost prove, it literally says this, cancer of the jaw, okay? And I'm so sorry, but this is preventative care, right? And we named it the SMILE Act because there were people that told us that they didn't feel confident in going to a job interview, taking a photo with their family members because they don't have teeth, right? How are they gonna eat, right? Which leads to other healthcare concerns, right? And if you have these big gaping holes, right, what are you gonna do? And dentures aren't always the best, right? And, you know, we asked our senators, my colleagues, you know, I had Senator Skinner tell me it cost her roughly $3,000. She got an implant a couple years ago. I had a constituent tell me it cost him $31,000, right? I said, that tooth better be made out of gold, right? You know, I don't understand how it costs this much, but okay. So the reality is this was the number one thing that it didn't matter if you were a Republican, a hardcore Republican, somebody from the rural California, or somebody like from, you know, the Bay Area. Everyone said that this was an issue, right? And it died mysteriously because it was too expensive. They estimated the cost to be at $4 to $7 billion, right? I said, okay, but how are you guys estimating that if you guys can't even tell me how many teeth you guys have put in, right? But I said 2022 data, 2020 data. I don't care. I just need some data, right? Like some metric to see your math. And that's the thing, right? So it's very frustrating as a senator, I'm gonna be honest with you. We get punched in the face a lot. But we always try to at least work with folks. And I wanna highlight my district team because they're the most available to you all. My chief is here with me. She's in the back, and she's a licensed marriage and family therapist. My team is made up of people that genuinely care about the well-being of others. One's a teacher, one is a substance abuse counselor, and those are the type of people that I want to employ and also work with to make sure that, again, we're prioritizing people's needs. So happy to answer any questions.
I have a question. Have there been any studies that show how Airbnbs affect the price of housing?
Okay. So there have been. Have there been any studies to show how Airbnb affects the price of housing?
Because we have 2 on our block.
Mhm.
That's just my block.
So Airbnbs and just the short-term rentals have been studied in some jurisdictions. I will say it's always a little skewed based on who's doing the study and what are they actually looking for, right? Because the data that's pulled out of it is important to understand, right? The methodology, how is this, over what long, period of time, things like that. We know that the Airbnbs are also making a significant amount of money for short-term rentals. They also limit the rentals to a certain number of days, so there's not tenancy, right? And there's a lot of safeguards for them, right? But, if it's house parties, if it's the parking, if it's so many different things, what is happening to the neighborhood, right? And I will say that when we're talking about renters and home ownership is out of the grasp of so many people across the board, myself included, right? I eventually want to be a homeowner, right? I want a space, I want to pay off the home, I want to stay there forever and live my life peacefully, right? I think that's what originally the American dream was for so many. The problem with a lot of the rental issues is that the priority has always been, and this is one of the questions that I'm asked often, is what is the guarantee of the return on investment for the investor or for the developer? And I have publicly said, why do you guys care about their profit margin so much? Like, why aren't you caring about the residents, right? And they say that, homes will come off the market. So you see places like Canada, right, Vancouver and so forth, that have basically said that if you're a foreign investor and investing to purchase these homes, we're going to tax you more, right? As an increase in property tax and so forth. They saw a huge dip in foreign investment in their city, and other cities were trying to follow suit, right? We have seen things like Zillow, right? And let's not even start on Blackstone, right? But the algorithms, when we go look at a home, it's no longer building a relationship with your local real estate agent, right? And going touring the homes, right? People do it all online. Before it's even put up, the homes, some of these corporations purchase it before we could ever purchase it. So like, let's say there was a little bit of a not so great home, $400,000. We would be willing to invest in that home, to build it up, clean up the floors, the walls, paint job, the whole nine, right? That is not even available to us because of their algorithm. They can just sell it so quickly, and they purchase it, right? So they almost have first dibs. We have been seeing this across the board. The more tech-oriented we become, the more of the disadvantage we see. We see this in subscription-based fees, right? It's harder to cancel a subscription, right, than it is to sign up for a subscription, right? And you're paying $10, $5, you don't even know what you're really paying for after a year or so, and you're like, do I really use it? Do I need that subscription? And so forth. And we just recently saw a lot of the subscriptions for, the Disneys and so forth. They have actually sued to be able to prohibit any laws to make it easier for a regular person, right?
Why can't the government simply tax the goodness out of all the companies that own houses? If you tax them high enough, the profit margin won't be there, and then the houses will be for the people.
Yeah.
Why can't we just tax the living goodness out of them?
So the problem with the tax situation and this, trust me, I'm right there with you, right? Is that it has to go to a ballot measure, right? So the voters have to decide, right? And so when it goes to the voters, right? So I'm going to say, for example, we have a number of propositions on the ballot, next week or so, right? And the amount of misinformation and complete lies, pure lies, like I ran for office and I saw so many mailings by me that were complete lies, and I had to send a cease and desist letter to 2 different groups. They would say facts on the actual sheet, and I'm like, that's not a fact. They're like, I have proof, right? They completely can do whatever they want, tie like good issues into something negative, into something like, Prop 13. Everyone's afraid of that, right? And most of the efforts around Prop 13 protect the single-family homeowner. It actually protects the single-family homeowner. Or if it's like under $3 million property or something, there's a lot of safeguards to protect average people, right? And it's like, we want to tax the people who bought the buildings, all these big, fancy commercial buildings and so forth in the 70s, completely paid off, right? And yet they're paying the property tax, right, from that original sales price and so forth, right? So to be able to undo that, there's a lot of people that are afraid because of the misinformation to the average person saying the government wants to charge you more because our property taxes slowly go up with, assessments and so forth, right? So I want to highlight that because our system is very susceptible to misinformation and disinformation, right? And that's one of the biggest concerns. So even though we have a ballot measure right now that says that we're going to remove this obsolete, dead law in California that should be, reformed. There's a lot of information saying that, this is not going to build housing. And all of the newspapers endorse that measure, right? I mean, opposing it, right? Why? Right? And so at the end of the day, it becomes a greed issue, right? And then the average person's not going to read all the details. That's the honest truth.
We've got 2 state bond measures on the ballot next week, so I'd like to ask you 3 questions. Number 1, what is California's current bond rating? Number 2, why are we being asked to approve $20 billion worth of bonds when there's $35 billion we have yet to sell? And number 3, why aren't they 10-year bonds like the U.S. Treasury rather than 35 or 40-year bonds that cost us more in the long run?
Yeah. I'll be honest with you, I did not work on the bond effort as much as some of my colleagues, so I'm not going to know all of the details. That's the honest truth of it, right? I will highlight that the 2 bonds, one's an environmentally focused one, right? And that's more very specific to our potential flooding issue in the next couple of years, some of our sustainability issues, our wildlife issues, things like that. And the other one regarding education is incredibly important. The situation is that we have not invested from an environmental standpoint / sustainability standpoint in California at this level. And the money that would be potentially divided and would go into regions, and I will tell you that the Bay Area would get a good chunk of money, which often is not the case, right? And so that is one of the reasons. I don't have our bond rating off the top of my head, and sometimes I don't necessarily agree with how they do it, but I was not part of that particular working group, right? The longevity of it is because sometimes they try to calculate, okay, how much are we going to need? How long is it going to take? Can we have this longer term? I did not make those decisions. I just want to be very frank about that. We did take a poll within the Senate. There was multiple other bond efforts. One was a housing bond. And we asked folks, what are your top issues? And you can only pick one. And education was the number 1 issue, right? And the environmental issue was bolstered up because it's a Senate and Assembly priority, right? So it's a $10 billion, both of them, as the effort. And the 2 houses have to agree on the number. The 2 houses and leadership have to agree what they're going to prioritize. The 2 houses are going to have to put a lot of effort to make sure it gets passed, right? On a local level, it's a little bit different, and we see bond efforts every single year. I will say in the city of Hayward, for example, every single time there's an election, there was a bond measure that was placed, and this ballot measure was verbatim identical to the last 5 of them, right? And the reason why it will say to support, public safety and emergency services, to support XYZ, to support, because the cost of living goes up, we have to pay our employees a little bit more. To say that we get more service out of it, not necessarily the case. I'm going to be very honest, right? And that was one of my biggest frustrations. I literally, sitting in budget, I said, all 5 of these are the same for the last 6 years that we've seen this, right? The honest truth is that governments also have to be able to sustain some of their requirements and so forth. I think that honestly we haven't even touched transportation and some of the efforts there with our road construction. We see more and more vehicles. People care about the environment, yet they will go and do their 24-hour shopping at Amazon, which is a 24-hour delivery service, and we see this, and they're impacting our roads, they're impacting our air, they're impacting so many different things, and we won't curb that type of effort, right? Yet, they care about sustainability. So it doesn't answer your question, and I apologize for that completely, and I'm sure that, our staff can follow up with you. But it is something that is frustrating, and like I said, I don't want to spend money unnecessarily, but I will say we have not made a significant investment in our environmental impacts and future potential disasters, nor do we want to leave our students and teachers kind of left hanging if we don't do something about our education. And all of our education systems did support that effort to, again, invest a little bit more.
Senator, thanks for visiting the Cory Neighborhood. It's a really great middle-class neighborhood. People lived in their houses for 30 years. They mow their own lawn. And the neighborhood's really worried about the density that's being proposed in projects that might exceed 10 stories right next to single-family houses. And the legislature, for the pursuit of more housing, has passed several laws that have said, in some cases, there'll be no public hearing or community meeting. It's approved by right. Or if it does get a hearing, if the city denies it, it'll get sued and lose money and all that, and the project will go forward. And another bill, we're at a school right now, and another bill allows the school district to convert the school to housing and circumvent all city planning for public hearings and community meetings. So that's kind of on people's minds, and what's your feedback?
So my concerns are the same as yours, right? I do live in a multifamily complex, right? It's a bunch of folks, and I will just say, for example, I've lived in this complex for a little over 10 years, and from when we started, obviously the rents have gone up. We pay for parking on a monthly basis. If I had a dog, my dog passed, but if I had a dog, I'd be paying for him on a monthly basis on top of a security deposit and an animal deposit and so forth. Now, we know that the jobs are here and there's housing development and quotas that we have to meet, these RHNA numbers, the Regional Housing Needs Allocation number that's done, every 8 years. The problem with this, though, is not every city meets some of the demands that their city requires. Whether there's more jobs coming in, whether they say that we're gonna have a population increase. During the economic recession, the county of Alameda actually was one of the few counties that their population actually went up, right? Where everywhere else we're seeing people move to Oregon, Texas, Arizona, Utah, so forth. Now, there are elected officials in the state legislature that really side with developers across the board, that really side with what they want to call is yes in my backyard. Now, just because you are concerned with the size of housing, the number of housing units does not mean you're anti-housing, right? And I say this often because for me, I care about a parking spot, right? Again, we don't have transit all over. I just share with you guys my concerns about transit, right? And so a lot of these policies are being pushed out. They're my colleagues, and I work well with them and so forth, and I agree on some issues and disagree on others. Coming out of San Francisco, coming out of the northern East Bay, whether it's Berkeley or Oakland or so forth, and again, kudos to them trying to do their effort, and they have stronger lobbyists that also advocate for the same bills and entities and to streamline things as they call it. And that doesn't allow local control, right? And so for me, you know, when there's a development, when there's a bill that was passed a number of years ago that allowed for upzoning of single-family zoning, right? And that makes sense, right? Okay, you know, some of these, like in my home that I grew up, I think it was a 5,000 square foot lot. Yeah, we could probably build an ADU in the back, right? We could probably do this. But my question has always been, okay, so let's talk about parking. Let's talk about noise. Let's talk about things like that. And I have said this many, many times over. Some of the policies, and I want you guys all to pay attention both at a local level and a state level, is that we cannot necessarily, like, we have a housing crisis, but it's not, the solution is not just build our way out of it, which is everyone's like, build, 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 build. Because it's the easiest solution, because you're supporting the developer, you're increasing potentially property tax to the cities that basically rely on it, right, in the county. You're supporting the workers that build these homes, and so there's no argument if you take that side, right? But for me, it is concerning when, you know, you have a 4,000 square foot lot that wants to build a hotel, basically, right? Or there's a huge unit and you're like, okay, well, now all these random folks are gonna look into my home, look into my door, and there's like only 10 foot between me and the next building. The amount of cars that are gonna be parked here, and let's be honest, right now they're saying 0 parking for some of the new developments, which I drive, so that's complete BS to me. There are some people that are like, oh, well, it's close to BART and close to this, okay? I would like to see what the ridership is on that BART, right? Because I still drive. I lived in Hayward, I drove to San Jose every single day. Not something I'd like to do, but BART didn't go as deep as I needed it, right? At that time, still doesn't need to go that deep, right? It's not faster, it's not safer, it's not cheaper, right? And then you have, you know, genuinely a lack of understanding of housing policy as a whole, right? So I said that there is an inherited interest of cities creating more expensive housing, right? Sales tax, property tax, things like that, right? Hotels and so forth. I have told my colleagues, we are building slums. We are making California, the Bay Area, a slum. And the reason why I say that is because if you can upzone a single family unit up to 4 homes potentially, how big are those homes, how great are those homes, you know, things like that. What are we really looking at? If you take a look, there are wonderful videos that you guys can take a look at where it shows all over the world, right? The wealthy are not building necessarily the ADUs. The homes in the hills that are like, you know, 20,000 square foot lots, they're not building in their backyard and upzoning, you know, one of those homes or not. They're upzoning the flatlands, right? Which is where middle class and lower income individuals are able to purchase, right? And to say that ADUs are going to help us out of our crisis, first off, there's not a lot of ADUs being built. Let's state that first fact. Second fact, on average, it could cost up to $250,000 to build an ADU, so who the hell is building the ADU, right? Right? Yeah. The other, even the modular construction, all of that stuff hit 150, and it keeps going up depending on what you put in your home. The next piece is, are those ADUs affordable when they're selling it or renting it? Absolutely not, right? There is no rent control on these ADUs. There's no deed restriction to say that if you're going to sell the ADU, that it has to be sold below market rate. There's nothing like that in play, right? And so I'm not saying that these are not good policies in some regard, right? We do need to develop. I fully support that. We do also need to ensure that we are making it affordable, right? And this supply chain theory that people, you know, will say if there's a demand, and if, you know, the higher the demand, the housing goes up, and, you know, we have no actual units to sell and so forth, that's completely false as well, right? And so this, you know, Adam Smith's invisible hand theory doesn't always work. I just want to say that for our economists here. It is our job as policymakers to put safeguards in place to protect vulnerable people, to give dignity to all people. And if we are building ADUs or upzoning and so forth, it should be respectful of the local community. They should have a say in it. And if we are streamlining, yes, streamlining processes like permits and things like that, fully agree with, but with some community input, right? And so I was opposed to some developments in Hayward just because of the fact that it was too large for that little tiny square foot lot. I'm so sorry, 4,000 square foot lot sounds big for a single family home, but not for a hotel, right? Not for like a little tiny mini apartment complex, right? And how much are the units going for, right? So I have a lot of concerns. I'm gonna be honest. We can't solve all of it overnight. I will say that when I've introduced bills to kind of be fair to tenants and lower income individuals and just the dignity of local control and public input, the real estate lobby, the developers lobby, the entire housing lobby spends the whole day in the building for 2 months to basically say why the bills are terrible and why this harms people and why this. And people like us don't trek up to Sacramento and sit in hearings and do this and do this and do that, right? And so I really want to say that I am advocating for the same things that we all care about. Is like, yes, we do need development. Yes, we also need a say. Yes, we need to streamline things. And I will say the Bay Area is very different than the Central Valley and the space that they have and what could potentially happen there. It's very different than LA. It's very different than the cities that sit on the shores, right? There's different issues. So a blanket policy, I don't necessarily think is always the best for certain things like this, right? On infrastructure, slightly different. We need uniformity across the state of California. So when we're talking about transportation, uniformity makes sense, right? But on some of the other issues, I think that we need far more conversation. So I know that was a long-winded answer, but I just wanted to be able to highlight some of the things.
We gotta stop. We're at 8 o'clock. No more questions, but boy, that's a lot of information. I don't know about you guys, but after hearing that, I have decided that I'm not going to become a senior. No. That's out. I'm not going that path. All right, our last speaker, no, not our last speaker, guarding the table is Kaylin here. Where are you? Kaylin, come on up. She is the board chairperson for Guarding the Table Silicon Valley.
Hi everybody, as was just mentioned, my name is Kaylin and I'm here to talk to you about our organization, Guarding the Table Silicon Valley. We are located on the, basically the intersection of 87 and Taylor Street, near downtown San Jose, near Japantown. We are a 1-acre nonprofit farm. We are run majority by volunteers, so most of our team are volunteers, and we run a community space together in order to grow food for our community, teach people how to grow their own food, and provide people access to resources to start their own gardens. It's an extremely it's an extremely special place, and I appreciate y'all allowing me a little bit of time to tell you about it, and would love to see a lot of your faces join us. Yeah, no problem.
Keep talking.
Perfect. I want to make sure I try to go along with the slides, but honestly, I'm so passionate about this, it ends up kind of going on. So I'll tell you a little bit about us, and then focus on our programs, and then just share how people can get involved, and I'm happy to answer questions in the back, because I know there's still a program to be going on. So as I mentioned, we are located in downtown San Jose, and our mission is really to grow food. Everything we do, that's our mission up there, but it's really to provide inclusive educational experiences. And our goal is to connect people to nature, to their food system, and to each other. So some people that come, they don't really like to garden. Like, it's really not an interest to them, but they love the people so much. So I imagine this group being here finds a sense of connection when you get to see your neighbors and interact with them. And if you get to see your neighbor walking down the street, it's like, I don't know about you, I love people. It's one of the greatest feelings. And this place is what provides that for me. So I'm riding my bike and going to the library, and I'm like, oh hey, I'll see you on Saturday. So it's really for that. That's why we're here. That's why we join. So about us, everything we grow is given to our community members for free. So people volunteer, they participate in a program. We end with what I call a harvest party. Everybody gets a bag and we harvest everything we grow. So it is not sold, it is not donated to food banks, it is for whoever steps foot on the farm. It is your right to the food that we grow, and that's really why we're there. Often a question that's going to come is how do we fund it? So I'll just answer that from the get-go. It's from the community. So we have donations from everybody, whether that's $5, whether that's $500, and everything in between. But there is no obligation to participate financially at all. We just want you there as much as possible. So you can see our team. We are run, I'm a volunteer, our executive director is a volunteer. We have 3 part-time staff. They're grant funded, so you don't have to worry about if your donation goes to salary. I know it's always a concern. But it's really to provide these programs. And so I believe the next slide. So, you know, we are a farm, so I wanted to be able to give people a visual of it. So the bottom corner, or this corner, it is a bunch of raised beds. It is owned by Swenson Construction Company. I know that name is quite familiar. However, they let us use the land, so it is a vacant parking lot. So under it is either concrete, cement, or same, or really hard rock bed. And so we built raised beds on top of it, and that allows so that anybody's home garden, right? A lot of us, we're not gonna grow a 10-acre farm. That is just not the scale that we all live on. But many people can fit either a raised bed, or even we give people fabric pots, and you can grow tomatoes or peppers or eggplant. We do demonstrations, so people can see how food can be grown at any scale. So you'll see that is majority of the growing space. You can see someone harvesting some broccoli. After a harvest, one of the little ones is harvesting an egg. We have 16 chickens, one passed away unfortunately. We have 16 chickens and they lay eggs, and the rule is whoever cleans the coop gets the eggs. So if you're into eggs, you gotta clean the coop. We find it's a good balance. And then we can go to the next slide. So our programs range, it's a diversity of programs. We try to keep them consistent so that way people can get a feeling for what is being offered, but we also offer new programs all the time. Our team gets really excited, and it's one of those things, if you want to lead it, you can start it. But you have to lead it, and you have to follow through with it. So, yeah, no, that's perfect. You can go to the next one. So just so people get a sense, some of our programs, our bread and butter are our volunteer days. They are educational days open for any age. I mean, 0 to 99, and we have seen everything in between. And so those are on Mondays and Wednesdays from 4 to 5:30 or sundown, because we're about to get in this time of the year. So that's every week, and then Saturdays from 10 to noon. And as I mentioned, we're going to end every time with a harvest party. So you will go home with your veggies depending on the time of the year. We have our Grow at Home program, which is if you're interested in starting your own garden, we give you the seedlings. You can even come at this time of the year, and we'll put the seed catalogs on the table. You put your little initials next to what variety you want to grow. If you want to try it, we'll grow those seeds in our greenhouse. We'll give you the plants. So that's really how it's run. And then there are educational classes. Last year we did 3 workshops. They are completely optional. You can show up on the last day, pick up your plants, and I promise there's no judgment. We're just happy you're there. Or you can come to each of the classes where it'll teach you how to plant them, then how to maintain them, how to fertilize them, how to harvest them, how to compost them. We have children's programs, so we have things like play dates, which is from 0 to 3 years old. We have ABCs of farming, 4 to 10 years old, and then volunteer days are open to all. And we have age-appropriate activities whenever anybody comes. That also includes field trips. We go to certain schools and help them put in their gardens. We do microgreen classes. We just kicked that off in, I think it's 1st through 5th grade classes, so they can grow that at home with no sunlight. My dad grows it in his closet. It's quite phenomenal, but it's really fun. Harvest boxes are more for folks that might be in need, so you can't, dedicate yourself to an entire volunteer day. You can come. We will walk around and harvest with you, and then you go, right? There's not an obligation you have to be there for any length of time. Workshops and classes, and if there are topics that we're not doing, we have somebody on staff I'm sure either knows it, will learn it, and then can teach and assist. Or if you all are experts in anything, education is not me standing here at a podium telling you how to garden, but it's also how you've done it and you teach us and we teach each other. So it goes in every direction. Community Composting Hub, this is a program I think where you met Tara, one of our volunteer members, but we just opened up a community compost hub where we give out buckets to the community. You put your food scraps in it, you bring it to us on one of those days of the week, we compost it. You can either help compost it, or you can just drop off your food scraps. So it's not going to the city, and I do use city compost. It fluctuates on its effectiveness, but you can bring it so that it's getting composted at the farm, and that is going back to the community or being used on the farm. Corporate tours if you have a team that you would like to come, and then lastly, community gatherings. We do have a potluck on November 9th. It is one of the best times. You bring a dish, a snack, a dessert, and something to share, and then we have a community meal together. So you can see more of the photos. That's the compost bucket that our community fills, and they bring it back to us. We have chickens. We had a class to learn how to build a cob bench, so we could learn how to do alternative building materials, and then you see some folks taking out the seedlings and putting them into the farm. This is more the harvest. It ranges throughout the season, but we try to grow a little of everything. I hope you all are all familiar that in California we have some of the best weather for growing everything, so we try to do that. We just planted 12 fruit trees last year. It's going to take 3 to 5 years, but you got to plant it yesterday for it to get started. So we're doing that, and so if there are also crops that you all are familiar with, and your hometown you grew it, we will try to grow it here too. So with that, I think that is kind of my spiel. It is a very special place, and I don't say that, I'm not getting paid to say that, but really do dedicate a lot of time to try to build this community together. So ways to get involved. That might be kind of small, but you can come and volunteer on our website. You can sign up for our newsletter, which tells you what's coming up next. I don't even know what the last one says, but you can bring your team to the farm. You can follow us on social media, and you can donate. So that is my spiel. I don't know if I should take questions up here or in the back, but I'm happy to answer any questions if there are any. Even better. All right. Well, I hope to see you all at the farm.
Holy cow! I feel like farming. Yeah. You know what? I made an investment because I was thinking about farming. God damn it. Oh, here it is. Yeah, I bought a tractor, a pro tractor. Okay. All right, we got one of our board members coming up because he's got a special program just for Halloween. Please welcome our webmaster. Okay, I'm using this. And thanks for the tape, but it's gone now. All right, this is Sinjin Johnson.
Art, I don't know how to tell you, but the tape is now stuck here. Okay. Hi everyone, I'm Sinjin, so I'm a neighbor here, board member, and proud dad of 2 boys. And I'm here today to talk to you about these. These are teal pumpkins, and as you know, in just a few days it's going to be Halloween. And my boys, just like every other kid, they're super excited about Halloween. They've got the costumes made, they've got their route planned, they're ready to go. But there's a problem. My oldest, my 8-year-old Quinn, he's nervous. He's anxious about this. And the reason for that is he is severely allergic to peanuts and tree nuts. And when he goes door to door, as we do every year, and we go and we open the door and someone hands us some food, it's going to be peanut butter cups, as they're in the back there now. It could be Reese's Pieces. It could be Mars bars, you name it. And it's very hard for kids to speak up to an adult, to say, hey, I can't take this, or I'm not sure. Or you end up at the end of the day and your parents have to sort through all the stuff and you get a little bit and your brother gets a big pile. And how does that make people feel? And honestly, like, my Quinn is 1 in every 15 kids that shows up your door in 2 days. This is not a rare thing anymore. This is a common, you're going to see kids coming to your door and asking and being unsure and maybe taking something, maybe not, and leaving. And so thankfully, there's the people at FAIR. They came up with the idea of the teal pumpkin. So this is the Food and Allergy Research and Education Organization. And they said, well, what if instead of candy, what if we give out something that's not food related? And we said maybe instead of, or in addition to, you could offer some sort of trinket. So for example, you could do pencils or bubbles or bouncy balls, or that's our bowl right there. We've got some little airplanes and kinetic sand and all sorts of things. And this is a way for kids who have food allergies, it could be gluten, it could be peanuts, it could be anything, that something is there for them. And the only thing they ask is, well, go get some non-treat related things, and then put something teal out on your doorstep. So that when my kid comes by and has a teal pumpkin as his little basket, and comes up and says, "Oh, there's a teal pumpkin there," families like me and him know it's safe for him. He can go and say, "I would love something from that. What do I get?" "Oh, bubbles. That's great. That's amazing." Right? Something so simple. And this project is all over the United States. In fact, if you're interested in this, first of all, these are for you. But if you're interested in this, CVS, I know we only have a few days left. CVS is a sponsor of the of Teal Pumpkin, so they have a whole bunch of different things you can get there. Walgreens, Target, you name it. But yeah, this is a way to make Cory Neighborhood more inclusive for the 1 in 15 kids that are going to show up in your door in just a few days. So if you're interested, if you are already going to give out non-food related items, raise your hand. I will give you one of these. If you're interested in saying, maybe I'm going to do this in the next few days. If you're willing to go to the store in the next few days and go get something, raise your hand. I will give you one of these right now. So, awesome. Yeah. Is there any questions I can answer in the meantime? Now it's confusing people with their hands up, so. Okay, you have a question.
So I've been doing this for a few years because I can't stop myself from eating the candy. And so I've given out little notebooks with a pencil through the spiral, with paper clips down the side, and I'll do like feminine colors. Now we're not gender labeling, but you know, the pinks and the purples and the blues and the green. And I've had kids come to the door, and when they take it and go, say to the other one, "See, I told you, this house has the good stuff."
Any other questions I can answer about Teal Pumpkin? I know it's late, I'll be quick. Thank you all so much. If you go on the website, the Teal Pumpkin website, there is a map there for families like mine that we can go and see. I think there are, last I checked, I think there are 4 houses, including my own in Cory Neighborhood, that are on there. But if you add yourself, thank you. We'll use it as a map. Yes? Oh yeah, this is also mine. All right. Christmas trees. Same price, same great service, same great 5-foot to 6-foot tree. All you gotta do is fill it out, drop it at my house, or if you have it today, I'll take it. Or if you want some other way to send it to me, you can. I don't think my email's on here, but you can find me and I'll take any other form of payment. Please, this is awesome, super fun. It is delivered to Art's house, or if you sign up for the delivery, I will personally go to your house and throw it in front of your lawn. Except if you're not in the Cory Neighborhood, I don't want to drive out to there. Oh yeah, price increases after Thanksgiving. Yeah. Okay, I will stay up here and represent this. So one of the other things that we've done year after year is a kind of holiday showcase. So as you're getting your trees, as you're decorating your house for whatever celebration you happen to be, if it's Diwali, if it's Christmas, if it's Hanukkah, your choice, decorate your house in all different ways. We're looking for people to help judge, I guess that's a way, to help judge and go through the community and say, which houses do we want to highlight, which ones do we want to vote on, and then we give out prizes just before the end of the year. So if you're interested, do we have a link?
No.
All right, we'll post it on the website. Yeah, well, I'll post it on the website because I run the website. That makes sense.
Go to the Cory website and email an info ad. It comes to the board, and we'll get you signed up. The thing is, the board has done this historically, and we're trying to be a little more inclusive with the neighborhood. The only caveat is you can't judge your own district. Okay, that's the only thing, and you can't be a recipient of a winner of you can't judge your own house or something like that. You eliminate yourself from the money. So you don't have to be a judge to photograph. If one person is interested in just photographing the lovely houses and decorations and trees that we have in the community, that's a position that we'd like to have, so we have a consistent look. And then in the January meeting, we present, here are all the ones that participated, here are ones that were runners-up or finalists, and here are the winners. And we try and have some fun in there to really capture the holiday spirit that everybody here tends to really be really good at. So if you like taking pictures and walking around the neighborhood, you don't have to be a judge, you can just take pictures, or if you want to be a judge and you don't want to take pictures, that's cool too. Go to our website and say you want to do that. We'd really like to have you.
All right.
We've got 2 judges, we need 4 more.
Thank you all very much.
Yeah. slide is to show that at the very bottom, the member at large, Ken Hiddle. Ken will stand up. He's our newest board member. All right, now the moment you've all been waiting for. Whew. All right, here comes the list. And that's all right. So we got 1 to 80. Oh. All right, it's a little tricky because there's spaces. All right, you know what? I'm going to make this one 80. No, I'll make it 63 and 64. All right, so 1 to 85. Siri, pick a number from 1 to 85.
It's 34.
34. It draw me. Oh my God. Okay, wait a minute. Come here. How do you say your last name?
Okay, now I'm sorry.
Samarani drama. Siri, pick a number between 1 and 87.
It's 13.
13. Simon? No, Brandon. Brendan. Yours? Oh. There you go. And the guy that took the seat. I hope my mustache doesn't look. That's great. And yeah, thank you. Okay, that's the show. I hope you enjoyed it. Our next one will be in January, so I hope to see you there. And if there's slices of pizza, grab a plate, take some home. If you want to take some water, juice, take some home. If you have kids, there's little cartoon books. Take those. Whatever you see. Leave the chairs. Leave the chairs. All right, thank you.